And I think what Mr. Mondip says is the distribution clearly shows that unfortunately the people at the bottom, most of the wealth is actually in physical wealth, which is stuff. And
Mm.
there's a lack of accumulation of financial assets, property, and pension wealth.
Hello and welcome to the Woke Finance Podcast, the podcast discussing all things finance and all things finance related. It's your boy Peter and I'm with my co-host, my bro Jax. How are you today?
Yes, yes, Peter. We've had some fantastic weather here in the UK at the time of recording this, which is towards the end of April, early May. And it's made me feel fantastically amazing. I think summer's around the corner. We've had a cold winter, we've had a long winter, and I'm ready to just get things cracking with summer.
Come on, man. On a personal finance note, does anything change when summer happens? I have no idea. What does anything change for you when the summer is out?
Well, people have more spending, right? People spend more money. Not for me personally, but people actually, yeah, no, for me as well. It's often the time of year that most people go on holiday. And so unless they had pre-booked it, it's often the time where they spend a lot in terms of when they are on holiday as well. Um, is often wedding season as well. So most people decide to have their weddings during summer, which is exciting for us attendees. But it's usually a financial cost for those that are putting the wedding together. So yeah, so summer is an exciting time. Most people don't spend too much time indoors. People want to be outside. And I work here in the city of London, and over the past few months, it's been obviously cold and, not a ghost town, but you don't see as many people. It is a very busy town, busy city, but you don't see as many people. You'll be shocked with what I saw
Hmm.
this week. It was absolutely rammed
Hmm.
in the city of London. And that's what happens. People come out to play and people spend money, businesses get more profitable, and that's fantastic for us shareholders.
That's it. Now, if you're a long time listener of the Woke Finance Podcast, if that is you and you are one of those people enjoying life over the summer. We know that you know better. You prepared for this, whether it was last year, 6 months ago, you've prepared, you've budgeted, and you've worked it out how you're gonna spend your summers. Or just like we encourage people how to spend for a particular period in winter, which is Christmas, we know you know better. And on that note, a massive shout out to our listeners wherever you are in the world, man. We recognize you, we appreciate you. We see you, man. Please, we just want to show our gratitude for your ongoing support. Now, today we got a very quick episode. We are literally it's a reaction episode actually. We don't really do this as much, but it was quite interesting. Some recent data that's come through, or a video that's reflecting on some data that's come through about some stats relevant for people in the UK. But I mean, these are things that you will see across the world. It might not be this particular community of people we're talking about, but everywhere across the world, there's particular groups of community who, we look at in further detail about where they're doing financially. Now, this video, Jax, you can give a bit more context because it was on Instagram, but it's by an account called Mr. Manager. And Mr. Manager, again, you can give a bit more detail as just yeah, given done a bit of research on finding out how wealthy Black Brits are.
Yeah, Tibby, who I've never met in person, but social media, you come across people. He's also known as Mr. Manager. He's been producing financial content for quite a while, and he has actually recently qualified as a financial advisor, actually, from what I recall. So yeah, he came up with this video that got a lot of traction, popped up on my feed, and I watched it and I thought this would be a great reaction video. It's an area that I'm a bit passionate about, so you can imagine I was excited to react to it, and also to give some of my reviews and my two pence.
Shout out Timmy. Shout out Timmy. And yeah, we'll put a link to this video or the yeah in the description. But yeah, let's actually play it now and have a listen and then we can just reflect.
wealthy are black people in Britain? I've been doing some research, and here are three interesting things I came across. So, the first thing is that black British Caribbeans have 2.5 times as much median wealth as black British Africans. The median is when you take all of the households and you line them up from lowest to highest, and then you point at the household that's in the middle. That's the median. For Caribbeans, it's £86,000, and for Africans, it's £34,000. Caribbeans, in the main, have had longer in the country and therefore have had more time to build up their pension wealth. The second thing is that when we look at average wealth versus median wealth, the numbers for black British wealth shoot up dramatically. Average wealth is when you take all of the households, add their wealth together, and then divide by the total number of households. For Africans, it's £147,000, and for Caribbeans, it's £379,000. This suggests that there are a small number of wealthy African and Caribbean households, bringing up the averages for the entire group. And lastly, there is a big difference between where black Brits and other ethnic groups hold their wealth. There are four types of wealth in the UK: pension wealth, property wealth, financial assets, and physical wealth. Black Brits have a comparable amount of physical wealth to other groups, but we have less pension, property, and financial assets than basically every other group. Given how long we've been in the country, less than a century for most of us, and the barriers that we faced and continued to face, I would say that black British wealth is on a good trajectory. However, I'd like to see more progress in black African pension savings. I'd like to see more wealth in the hands of the average black British household. And I'd like to see less of an emphasis from black Brits on physical wealth and more of an emphasis on pension wealth, property wealth, and financial assets. That's things like stocks and shares. What did you think of the findings?
Oh, so Jax, I guess it'll be good to hear some of your initial reactions to what we've just heard. And you know what, first of all, Jax, why is actually attention even paid to this in terms of Black Brits here in the UK? What's the interest? Why do we need to know this?
Well, firstly, because I'm black, so it's quite relatable. But no, the truth of the matter is, when you look at the stats, stats that even Timmy didn't speak about, if you look at it in a bit more detail, you find that unfortunately here in the UK, and I'm quite sure it's the same across the developed world, where black people are the ethnic minorities. Um, Often when we do the stats, we are often at the bottom. So whether it's income, whether it's asset bases and net worth, often black people are at the bottom. And there are many different other stats and forecasts. One I saw recently was saying that in the next, I don't know, 20, 30 years or so, I think it was 2050, I can't remember the exact date, that the average black wealth will be zero, for example. So
Mm.
when we come across these stats, it's quite alarming. And I think it's just important to discuss it, think about it, understand that it probably is not straight. It is not always what it is, so it's good to dissect it because statistics are not always telling. You have to be an analyst and actually understand what's going on. And then we can think about how we can improve the statistics in our favor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you see from the video, I mean, there's only so much you can get from a short clip. So shout out, Mr. Manager. I'm sure if you go on his account, you can probably see more details or do your further research. But quick highlights, there was a distinction in terms of what wealth actually means. For the newbie listener, wealth goes beyond just how much physical cash you have. And we'll talk a bit more about that. Obviously broke down in terms of medium household wealth, which the stats were showing that when you break Black Brits into Caribbean and Africans, Caribbean had £86,000 and African had a median household wealth of £34,000. Similarly, with the mean wealth of African households was 147K and then Caribbean's 379K. And Jackson instantly, I mean, breaking that down, there's a reason why there's a distinction, right? And in the video, it says, obviously Caribbeans have been here a little longer. So, yeah, what are your initial thoughts around that, even?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's true. Caribbeans have been in the UK longer, much, much, much longer actually than Africans. To be honest with you, in the video, it's probably the part I wasn't most interested in, if I'm really honest with you. I don't really want to be comparing Caribbeans and Africans. But look, yeah, Caribbean people have been in the UK longer, which means they have had a longer time to buy properties, and we know what has happened to properties over the long term in terms of property prices, and how much cheaper it was back then as well. So when you combine the fact that Caribbean people have been here longer, plus they were able to buy properties cheaper, which have, obviously gone up in price. That would definitely skew the statistics in favor of Caribbeans versus Africans. And also the flip side is, well, the flip side. So additionally, we're talking about pension contributions as well. We've done videos where we talk about the power of compounding, and it's very important to understand the power that or the role time plays when it comes to the power of compounding. And so the longer you have to put money into an investment vehicle, the more tax efficient investment vehicle here in the UK and often around the developed world is a pension. And so, yes, in the statistics, he does mention that. And so in the video, he does mention that, yes, it is very, very true that Caribbeans have contributed towards pensions for a very long time. So, I mean, that's my first view is quite self-explanatory. It's quite obvious that that's the case. But I did really want to go into the statistics because one thing I do know about Africans, particularly being an African myself and having African people around me, I just wonder whether the statistics actually capture the fact that a lot of Africans, for example, tend to build back home
Mm.
rather than buying a property here. Whether you agree with that or not is another conversation. But I think that's probably something that's not captured in the data.
Yeah, and on that as well, yeah, I think you're right. A lot of it may not be captured. And to be honest, all of this it also just it's self-explanatory in terms of why, in terms of just blacks in general, might have less than, let's say, our white counterparts. We just haven't been here long enough to build that wealth, so to speak. But we are doing that, and we're continuing to do that as well. But yeah, your point on, Africans building back home, I think 2 points on that. One, sadly, it's just, or whatever your opinion is, it's not recorded. So a lot of, Africans are building things, back home, but not exactly, recording that on, in their finances here in the UK. But also, a lot of Africans haven't actually realized that wealth. So a lot of cash is being spent, but they're not actually able to say, I own this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So some of it's obviously being wasted as well. I shouldn't
I
be
wanted to,
laughing.
I wanted to say that, but it.
I shouldn't be laughing. But yes, look, that is definitely something that I think would definitely not be captured in the statistics. But regardless of whether it's not, I think the truth still remains that the wealth will be, there will be a distribution difference in the wealth because the appreciation of the value of properties here in the UK, in the US, and other places will far outpace properties back home,
Yeah.
historically anyway.
Absolutely. And one of it was an interesting point, what's it, Mr. Manager made in the video in terms of the distinction or the mean wealth versus the medium wealth. It clearly shows that, you know, there's in terms of Black Brits and their wealth, although it's been growing and we're on a positive trajectory, it's clearly showing that it's a small pool of Black Brits that are bringing the overall wealth up rather than more of an evenly distribution. What are your reflections or thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. So for those who actually paid attention back in school, when we studied maths, when we studied statistics and maths, there are different ways of, calculating averages, right? We've got the mean, we've got the median, we've got the range, I believe, and there's other stuff like interquartile ranges and all that kind of stuff. But the mean and the median are the most popular ways of measuring an average. But the way there's trust me, there's so many other ways of measuring averages, but these are the main two main ones. But often the median is a better indication of what the average actually is. So the median, if the way to think about the median is, imagine we have 100 people and we're trying to measure their height, the average height of 100 people. what we will do is we will line up all the people, all the people in the statistics measurement. People like myself who are quite short would be at the beginning. And then people like Peter who are a bit taller, you might be. I mean, I think you're quite tall, but you're not that tall. Um, and so what we'll say is that the people in the middle will be the people that are representative of the average height, basically, right? That's how we measure the median. Whereas the mean is a different type of measurement in the sense that if you have one very tall person, then he will bring up the average height of everybody else because the measurement's different. Think about if we're measuring people's incomes. If it's me and a few people in our 30s and all my friends that I grew up with, and we're trying to measure our average income, that's one thing. But then, let's say all of a sudden David Beckham joins the room, right?
Mm.
He joins the room and he adds his income to our income. He definitely pulls the average income in the room. So the mean is often not the best measurement, if I'm honest with you. But
Mm.
the median is quite telling. And it's still good to understand these two statistics and compare them to each other because, like you've just said, you're able to like back out some sort of analysis. And the
Mm.
analysis here is, yeah, if the mean is much bigger than the median,
Mm.
then it means that yes, there's a few people that are actually bringing up the average. And I think my thoughts on that is that, yeah, I think what you find, especially here in the UK, is we don't have a lot of generational wealth.
Mm.
We have a lot of new wealth being created in the Black community and especially the African community. And I think if I'm honest, if I had to guess, I think a lot of that wealth has been built by people who have actually taken probably this educational route, gone to university, and are working in certain industries. Um, I think that those are the people that probably push up the average. And of
Mm.
course, when it comes to business, they push up the average even further because there's only a few Black people that have done amazingly well in business. But when they have done well, they've done amazingly well. We know
Mm.
there's a lot of issues in things like private equity and the lack of funding for Black business people. But the few that have made it, they've done it amazingly well. And there are still a large pool of Black individuals, Black families who are struggling to just make ends meet.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's deep, man. I mean, as I said, the good news is that as a whole, we are going on a positive trajectory, but there's more that needs to be done for there to be a bit more equal distribution of that world. Oh, well, you know what I mean, to be more of a distribution of that
Yeah.
world across all Black Brits, so to speak. So, and another point, well, 2 points. One point was that, and then the other one was around the distinction between wealth. Now, this is where the education piece comes in, right, Jax? Because for the everyday individual, if they may be in college, school, automatic when you're thinking of wealth, when they say, oh, when I'm old, I'm going to be rich, a lot of the times we're thinking of that hardcore physical cash and stuff like that. So talk a bit more about Mr. Money's Jar's reflection on the distinction between the different types of wealth and what the issue is here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there are different types of wealth. Financial wealth, which is the ownership of assets, paper assets like stock, shares, bonds. There's pension wealth, which is wealth that is stored in a pension account only to be called upon a certain age, a retirement age, up to 55 plus. Then you have physical wealth, which is just stuff, right? Because if you've got stuff, in theory, you can convert it to money. So technically, it is seen as some sort of wealth as well. And I think the last one will be property wealth, which is quite self-explanatory. And I think what Mr. Mondip says is the distribution clearly shows that unfortunately the people at the bottom, most of their wealth is actually in physical wealth, which is stuff. And
Mm,
there's a lack of accumulation of financial assets, property, and pension wealth. And I think that is the educational piece, and that is something that here at the Walk Finance podcast we've spoken about time and time again. That is important for people to allocate cash assets, allocate money to acquiring assets such as financial assets, pensions, and buying a home. In fact, we've said many times that if you are able to get on a property ladder, if you're able to contribute towards your pension pot, and you're able to invest here in the UK through your stocks and shares ISA, which in the US is similar to a Roth IRA, then you will be fine long term, right? But you have to commit to this and do it over the long term. We've been saying it on the podcast for a very long time, and we stand by it. And I think we hope that more people are listening to the Port Finance podcast. Let's say that we hope that more Black African households and Caribbean households are listening to the podcast, understanding what it is as well. But I do have an opinion as to why this may be the case, and I do think it really comes down to a lack of education and also financial exclusion. And so when we talk about financial wealth, like stock shares, it is very uncommon for um Black households, both Caribbean and African, to really understand what these things are. Because a lot of the time, these things are often a form of generational wealth passed down. Okay.
Mm,
So if you've never, inherited it, it's unlikely that all of a sudden you start investing in stocks and shares,
mm,
unless you're educated about it. And so I think that explains why a lot of Africans do not own stocks and shares. I mean, in my own circle and community, it's a brand new phenomenon. And we thank social media for that, to be honest.
mm.
And the access to information. But I don't know about you, Peter, but nobody spoke about stocks when I was growing up.
No one, yeah.
Yeah.
Other
So
other than from a book, Peter Lynch
yeah.
and them man there, but we no one like in our circles or anything growing up, school, home, it just wasn't
Home there.
spoken about.
No,
And you talk about generational wealth, included in that is generational education being pushed
that's
down.
part of the wealth. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And you look, until I think last year, pensions was a tool mostly used to pass on wealth in the most tax
mm,
efficient way,
mm,
right? But again, when we look at Africans that came here in the 80s and some in the 90s, etc., even if you look at the jobs that they've done, a lot of those jobs were cash in hand,
mm,
right? In April 2012, here in the UK, auto enrollment was introduced, and anyone that was over the age of 22 and earning over £10,000 a year had access to and was automatically enrolled into a pension scheme. Now, if you are only receiving cash in hand and doing 0 hour contracts, which many Africans did and probably still do, then you would miss out on this opportunity.
mm.
And I think that also explains the huge disparity as well.
Yeah. And as you're even saying that as well, even some of the people that Africans, because this is about Black Brits, right? But some of the people who might actually have wealth like back home and stuff, maybe they're just not included in this because it's if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
of our parents' generation might not be as in Black Brits, if that makes sense. They might still be African. So maybe that's not even included in the data as well. But no, that's super interesting. Very
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and I would say with data, you can always back out some sort of analysis and get a general feel for the theme that's
Mm,
taking place, but it's not always, and well, it's never 100% correct.
100%.
Because you're not basically, I mean, how do they know exactly how much wealth someone has?
I mean, these statistics that include people like us. We always ask. I don't remember ever being asked or anyone sitting down and going through what I have.
And- well, I mean, the flip side to that is they've got a lot of data on us, right? So
Yeah,
they really
yeah,
wanted to, but, but I'm sure they don't know my full wealth anyway.
That's it. Them ones. That's funny.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, my final question to you, Jax, is we're in 2000, what, 25, so 2050 comes through. What would if Mr. Money Jar was to do another video, let me see, has he got grey hair and he's got grey hair and everything, 2050, and needs to do another video in this. What would you like him or anyone else talking about the current status to say now before I let you ponder on that one, but before we hear from you, your thoughts, we're just gonna give a shout out to where we are getting listeners from. And today we're going to give a shout out to El Paso, which is a city and county in Texas, US.
Wow, 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 wow. I mean, we all know Texas. Welcome to the Woke Finance Podcast. You were here with myself, Jax, and the co-host Peter. And on this podcast, we talk about all things finance and all things finance related. If you want to know more about what we do, because we are more than a podcast, head over to www.wokefinance.co.uk. That's www.wokefinance.co.uk. And if you want to engage with us on social media, we are predominantly on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. If you search for Woke Finance, you'll be sure to find us. Welcome to the podcast. I hope you were enjoying and gaining tons of value.
Shout out to our listeners in El Paso. I really want to know why and what brought you to the podcast, man. So do reach out to us and just let us know. But Jax, back to you. The year is 2050. I want to hear what is your video gonna be saying.
Ah, mate, to be honest with you, Peter, I think I don't even want to wait that long. I have a personal desire, a personal goal that I am trying to achieve, which is I want everybody that I come into contact with um to have a an investment portfolio um and ideally to go on a property ladder. And that's, so I'm speaking here specifically about the Black community. When I read these statistics, sometimes it can be frustrating, but I do like Timmy said, we are going in the right direction.
Mm,
But we need more people to be going in the right direction. And so yes,
mm,
in that time frame, I would want everybody that I've personally come across in one way, shape, or form, whether it's even through this podcast, whether it's in person. I want everyone to have a portfolio. I want people to invest through their stocks and shares ISA. If you're in the US, I'm talking about your Roth IRA, but I also want people to be, actively contributing towards their pension pots. So whether it's a workplace pension, whether it's a private pension like a SIP here in the UK, um, whether it's through other vehicles like a lifetime ISA, I would want everybody to have at least one of these accounts. Again, in the US, we're talking about 401ks. These are all important vehicles that we need to make them a standard part of our living. I think that's what I'm trying to communicate. This has to be a standard way of living. If you have a current account, you should have a financial assets account. Now I know getting on a property ladder is very difficult. It's very difficult now because prices are really high, and at the time of recording this episode, interest rates are high too. So it's a double whammy. However, I do encourage people to get on a property ladder if you can. There are many influencers out there that I've seen in recent times that say things like, "Hey, don't buy a home. You can rent. Why buy a home? Don't buy a home." I want to submit to you that that piece of advice does not relate to us.
mm,
Okay. It does not relate to us. Now, of course, you don't buy a home you can't afford, right? You have to be sensible. But ideally, if you can get on a property ladder, that is a fantastic thing to do. And then, the last thing is I want us to spend less of our capital buying physical stuff,
mm,
right? Material stuff. It's quite telling. We talk about, it's one thing not having any financial wealth or not having any property wealth or pension wealth, but it's quite telling when there is wealth and it's in stuff. Okay.
mm,
And I think that's something that we need to, that's more of a mindset shift. We need to shift our mindset from just accumulating stuff and hoarding, which I do believe a lot of that is unfortunately linked to a poverty mindset.
mm,
So we need to go through that mindset change. And then still have stuff, still enjoy stuff. If you like a nice watch, a nice car, that's absolutely fine, but it should not make up the largest percentage of your net worth. So I think that's what I want. I want in that time, I want the average person to have investment accounts, property. These things should just be a standard part of life.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. For our listeners of 2025 and beyond, you've heard it there. Hopefully in 2050, you're part of that vision, that dream. Your children are part because, as you know, we need to educate the ones coming be after us as well. Your parents, if they're still around, need to be part of that. Siblings, all of that. So that's the hope. So Jax, man, perhaps in 25 years, we will listen to this again and see. Yeah, man, I'm feeling that I'm in agreement with that. And yeah, man, we're on the way. We're on the way, as the video even says, and ends. We are on the trajectory, and it's just about playing our part for our families, our future, and generations to come, man. So, Jax, definitely a good reflection on that one, man. Any final things before I let you go?
No, I think we've hit the nail on the head in terms
Come
of
on.
just, yeah, I think it's really important that we understand what's going on. Again, as I said, the statistics are not always 100% correct, but it does tell us something. And like you said, we could all just do our part, and we're on a good trajectory. Hopefully, it continues in a good trajectory. But even if it doesn't, then you don't want to be part of the bad statistics. In other words, be do your part. Do your part to build a community so that we are all financially empowered to live purposeful lives for ourselves and also to provide for our families.
Amen to that. And on that note, all
Stay
stay woke.